This video is for entertainment.
When the spotlight gets too hot, what really unfolds when the dazzling Margot Robbie, an actress whose quiet resilience is a rare commodity in Tinseltown, finds herself opposite the sharp, unapologetic wit of Joy Behar on live daytime television. And the conversation takes a sudden, irreparable turn because of a question that should have remained unvoiced. Before we dive into the fallout, and trust me, you'll want to stick around because this clip redefined live TV drama. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button for narrative vibe and given us a thumbs up. The energy shift that swept through that studio wasn't merely tense, it was truly seismic. The calm before the takedown. The morning commenced like any typical installment of The View. The audience was chattering excitedly, the studio machinery hummed with readiness, and Joy Behar was already setting the mood with her trademark blend of cynicism and friendly banter. Yet, an almost palpable undercurrent existed. A hushed charge, that very specific kind of atmospheric pressure that signals an approaching squall long before the first thunderclap. Margot Robbie entered the space radiant, effortlessly polished, an expansive smile gracing her lips. She waved to her cheering devotees in the crowd, who bellowed her name as if she were a cultural phenomenon. Taking her spot, she settled into the chair next to Whoopi Goldberg, one leg crossed neatly over the other. She appeared completely prepared for the usual breezy dialogue, film promotion, shared laughs, the predictable dance of a press junket. But Joy was scrutinizing her guest, seemingly already aware she was about to strike a deep, resonant chord. Collision. The unforeseen question. The segment initially flowed without issue. Sunny Hostin asked about Margot's recent cinematic endeavor. Whoopi lightheartedly commented on her flawless appearance, drawing agreeable laughter from the viewers. Margot joined in, visibly relaxing as her shoulders lowered, the conversation slipping into a comfortable rhythm. Then, Joy Behar leaned forward. Her smile was small, a knowing arch. Her voice, however, was deceptively gentle. "So, Margot," she began, the phrasing innocent, though her gaze conveyed anything but. "There's been considerable commentary suggesting you've essentially carried the entire film industry this past year." Joy paused for effect. "Some would even go so far as to call you overrated. What's your immediate reaction to a statement like that?" The set froze. The silence that followed was so thick it felt like a fragile object dropped onto the floor, shattering the previous ease. Margot blinked, the unexpected attack catching her utterly off guard. A few audience members gasped audibly. A stunned murmur of, "Oh my goodness," floated through the room. Margot gathered herself, swallowing hard before lifting her chin. "Well, I think people often fail to grasp the sheer amount of work that goes into." Joy didn't allow her to finish. She cut her off immediately. "No, I mean, let's be frank. Do you genuinely feel that people lavish too much praise on you? You are omnipresent. You're in absolutely everything. Doesn't that success become a little inflated?" Sunny shot Joy a swift, warning glance. Whoopi raised her eyebrows, clearly surprised by the intensity. Margot hesitated, a visible catch in her breathing. "I genuinely don't view my career through that specific lens," she stated measuredly. "I am deeply thankful for the opportunities." Joy interjected again. "Opportunities, or simply special treatment?" A collective ripple of shocked whispers spread through the studio audience. Margot's composure shifted, subtly, yet profoundly. Her smile vanished. Her eyes hardened, as if someone had physically reached inside her and pressed against a hidden vulnerability. You could almost sense her internal rhythm falter, her pulse accelerating, every muscle in her neck and shoulders tightening. She fought to stabilize her voice. "Joy, are you suggesting that I haven't earned the career I have?" Joy offered a casual shrug. "I'm merely posing the question that everyone else seems to be considering." That loaded statement hung in the air, potent and suffocating. Whoopi leaned forward, prepared to intervene. "Joy, come on, now." But Joy did not back down. She settled deeper into her seat, folding her arms, an expression of amused confrontation firmly planted on her face. "Look, you've enjoyed a phenomenal run. But some people believe Hollywood is too quick to crown its darlings. I'm curious, how does it feel to be perceived as the industry's chosen one? This was less a question and more a direct challenge. A genuine curiosity builder for the viewers, certainly, but a provocation for Margot. Margot's eyes briefly dropped, then rose again, clearer and steadier than before. She drew a slow breath. You could practically observe her internal struggle, wounded pride, frustration, disbelief, and underneath it all, a strengthening resolve. I have dedicated myself to working exceptionally hard, she responded slowly. I have embraced significant professional risks. I have consistently pushed my limits, and without a doubt, I have earned this. Joy laughed. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp, dismissive, severing Margot's declaration like a clean, quick incision. Margot froze. The audience froze. Sunny shut her eyes, as if she could already see the unavoidable catastrophe unfolding. What exactly is amusing? Margot inquired softly. Joy tapped a note card she held. It's just fascinating to hear actors discuss earning things. You are talented, Margot. Nobody disputes that. But there's a distinct difference between genuine talent and relentless hype. And right now, you are unequivocally hype. Margot's jaw tensed. Her fingers gripped the armrest of her chair. Her breathing hitched, not dramatically, but enough that the sensitive microphone picked up the faint tremor. Joy, she said, her voice now dangerously soft, I genuinely do not appreciate being belittled on national television. The entire room held its breath. Joy blinked once, taken aback by the sudden steel in Margot's tone. Belittled? I am simply asking candid, honest questions. No, Margot countered, her voice now gaining warmth and intensity. You are making negative assumptions about my professional value, my commitment to the craft, and my personal integrity. Whoopi nodded slowly, agreeing with the assessment. She's right, Joy. You are definitely pushing the line. But Joy merely smiled, that familiar, slightly menacing curve of her lips. Look, Margot is capable of handling tough questions. She's a big girl, after all. Margot inhaled sharply. Something shifted in the atmosphere. It was a tangible change, like a sudden drop in temperature. The air seemed to constrict around her. Her eyes flared with an emotion more raw, more fundamentally human, pain, profound frustration. A boundary had been crossed, not accidentally, but with clear intent. Being a big girl doesn't mean I am obligated to tolerate disrespect, she declared. I arrived here to discuss my professional work, not to defend my right to exist in this industry. A low chorus of "woo" rose from the audience. Joy raised her eyebrows, almost playfully amused. So, you feel victimized? Margot simply stared at her. Wouldn't you? She retorted. A perfect rhetorical question to make the viewers reflect. That was the crucial instant, the precise moment when you could feel the gravity of the entire studio rearrange itself. Everyone watching suddenly grasped that this was no longer a standard interview. This was an undeniable confrontation. Whoopi tried to intervene, all right, let's. But Margot leaned back, crossing her own arms, maintaining unflinching eye contact with Joy. Her voice tightened, carrying a slight tremor that exposed the vulnerable person beneath the impenetrable Hollywood facade. You know, she stated, women in this business are constantly told they are too much, too fortunate, too aggressive, too loud, just too everything. I navigate that perception every single day. But to hear it echoed by you, another woman, on national television, it's genuinely disappointing. The statement landed with surprising weight. Joy's smile completely evaporated. She opened her mouth to speak, but Margot was not finished. I have deeply admired you for years, she continued, her voice measured but steady. But if your definition of journalism involves the systematic tearing down of other women merely to make an abrasive point, then perhaps the industry isn't the only thing that's fundamentally flawed, it might be the very people who claim to be questioning it. The audience erupted, not in cheering, but in stunned gasps, urgent murmuring, and leaning forward in their seats as if watching an astonishing plot twist unfold in real time. Joy's face was rigid. Sunny was immobile at the table. Whoopi simply muttered, "Lord have mercy." Margot, breathing deeply, her chest rising and falling as she fought to stay composed, knew she had just uttered words that could never be retracted. But what she didn't realize yet, what no one realized, was that this tension was only the introduction. Something significantly more explosive was imminent. A moment that would not only jolt the studio but lead to a dramatic turn that would leave millions of viewers stunned across all social media platforms. You definitely won't want to miss what happens next. The tipping point, hype versus humiliation. The studio air was suffocatingly thick. It felt as if every light, every camera, every person present understood they were observing a scene meant for private viewing, a moment that was raw, unedited, and dangerously authentic. Margot's last words still hung, vibrating like a plucked string. For a long, significant period, nobody dared to speak. Then Joy inhaled sharply, sat bolt upright, and forced a thin, brittle smile. "Well," she remarked, her voice reverting to her characteristic sarcastic cadence, "I wasn't aware we were here to exchange dramatic monologues." The audience murmured again, some clearly stunned, others deeply uncomfortable, and still others utterly captivated by what felt less like a talk show and more like a live emotional battle. Margot offered no reciprocal smile. She didn't move. Her gaze remained locked on Joy, unyielding. "We are here to have a conversation," she clarified. "But I refuse to pretend that everything is perfectly fine after you just implied I'm some kind of manufactured celebrity." Sunny gently raised a hand, attempting to mediate. "Let's just take a quick step back, everyone. Margot, we truly appreciate you being here, but," Joy cut through Sunny's attempt like a hot knife. "Sunny, it's unnecessary. Margot is understandably upset. She is absolutely entitled to that feeling. But this is the View, not a glossy, red carpet puff piece." Margot's jaw tightened further. "You are correct," she shot back. "This program is meant to foster dialogue, not to act as a platform for humiliation." Joy laughed again, louder this time, leaning back as if Margot's reaction were ridiculously entertaining. The sound echoed through the studio, sharp, patronizing, like a match tossed into dry kindling. "Oh, please," Joy scoffed dismissively. "Humiliation? Give me a break. This is nothing compared to how the real world operates. People criticize performers constantly. You can't afford to fall apart every single time you hear an opinion you dislike." This line was a deliberate open loop. Who is capable of handling the real world? Margot's eyes widened, not from shock, but from something deeper, an expression that stripped away her composure. It was a look of hurt, genuine disappointment, and quiet pain. Her voice dropped to a lower volume, but it was now edged with a definitive sharpness. "I am not falling apart, Joy," she countered. "I am simply standing up for myself." A wave of applause began to stir in the audience, hesitant, faint at first, then gaining momentum as people realized they were supporting not just a star, but a defense of personal dignity. Joy's expression grew colder. "Oh, so now you're positioning yourself as some kind of feminist icon because you didn't appreciate a slightly challenging question." Whoopi finally lifted her hands, adopting a tone of stern authority. "Joy, we are stopping this right now." But Joy wasn't listening. Or perhaps she was merely listening to the escalating tension she had engineered, leaning fully into the chaotic energy. Margot tilted her head slightly. "A challenging question is one category," she stated. "Undermining a person's inherent worth is an entirely different one." "Worth?" Joy scoffed. "Margot, people think you're successful because you're beautiful. You know that to be the truth, correct? No one is exactly lining up to declare you the next Meryl Streep." The audience gasped in unison, loudly, sharply, a collective explosion of life. Margot's face became utterly still. Not a flinch, not a single blink, just pure, profound stillness. A silence that spoke volumes more than any shout could. Her eyes were faintly glistening, but she held her gaze firm. Sunny sank back in her chair, visibly shaken. "Joy, seriously, what on earth are you doing?" she whispered. Joy shrugged, as if the answer were obvious. "I'm stating the truth. Isn't that precisely what we are supposed to do on this program?" Whoopi muttered beneath her breath, "We're supposed to be respectful." The air tightened again, heavy, throbbing with all the words left unsaid. Margot breathed in slowly, like someone meticulously collecting the fractured pieces of her self-control before they irrevocably shattered. "I did not come here for this," she articulated softly, the edges of her voice barely trembling. "Not to be judged solely on my face or to be relentlessly compared to someone else's decades-long legacy." Joy rolled her eyes dismissively. "Then perhaps you shouldn't be working in Hollywood." That was the final, defining blow. The audience erupted, not in applause, but in a roar of disbelief. People shifted anxiously in their seats, whispering urgently, their eyes darting between Joy and Margot as if witnessing a live-action, unforgettable drama. Margot leaned forward for the first time, her hands tightly clasped. "Do you hear the words leaving your mouth?" she demanded, her voice vibrating with a potent mix of fury and genuine disappointment. "You are deliberately reducing my entire professional existence to a detrimental stereotype that you know is harmful." Joy folded her arms tighter. "I am reducing it to reality." "No," Margot shot back, instantly. "You are reducing it to cruelty." That single word landed like a physical blow. Joy blinked, momentarily stunned by the sheer force of Margot's certainty. She opened her mouth to reply, but this time, the words were difficult to summon. Her usual bravado wavered. And Margot wasn't finished. "This is the moment that changes everything, folks. Do you honestly believe I haven't had to fight for every single role?" she continued. "Every single audition. Every director who only saw a blonde face. Do you truly believe I haven't had to earn the respect I've received, piece by piece?" Joy remained silent. Sunny leaned in, her voice hushed but urgent. "Margot, you don't owe her any kind of explanation." But Margot wasn't explaining, she was reclaiming. "I have been doubted constantly throughout my entire career," she stated. "By critics, by professional peers, and yes, by people exactly like you, Joy. People who immediately assumed that success must be attributed to mere luck, or favoritism, or some unearned privilege. But do you have any idea of the unrelenting commitment required? Do you know about the sleepless nights spent meticulously preparing, terrified of failing the people who believed in me? Or the roles I took that were initially mocked, only for those same people to praise the performance later?" The audience listened in complete, stunned silence. Joy swallowed hard, her expression finally shifting. For the first time, a flicker of genuine discomfort crossed her eyes. Margot's voice softened. Slightly, but its edge remained. "You do not get to determine my worth," she stated definitively. "And you absolutely do not get to laugh at me for defending it." The applause that followed was no longer scattered. It was thunderous, rising in powerful waves across the studio. People stood up. A few yelled out supportive affirmations like, "Yes." The clapping was infused with the fierce energy of witnesses seeing justice materialize. But Joy didn't applaud. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She leaned back in her chair, her face taut, her jaw locked, her eyes narrowed, not with confidence, but with something far more complex, wounded pride, a sense of deep embarrassment. A dawning realization that she had completely lost control of the moment she thought she had mastered. Whoopi finally exhaled loudly. "All right, everyone, let's just take a deep breath," she said gently. Everybody breathe. But Margot wasn't breathing normally. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. Her eyes glistened even more intensely. Her voice cracked, just slightly, when she spoke again. I genuinely need a moment." And that instant, the crack of vulnerability, the barely contained tremor in her hands, told the entire room that this confrontation was still far from its climax. The studio air was thick, as if everyone was inhaling the same collective shock, and no one could predict when the release would come. The definitive walk-off. Margot's voice had cracked just enough to allow a glimpse of the raw human emotion beneath the polished veneer. That small display of vulnerability hit the room like a physical tremor, rattling something deep within the collective consciousness. Whoopi tried to calm the waters with a soft, steady tone. "Let's all just take a second here." But the second never arrived. Margot stood up slowly, deliberately, like a person finally rising after being deliberately pushed too far. Her chair scraped sharply against the studio floor, a small sound that nonetheless cut through the silence like a cry. The audience stiffened, their eyes wide as they watched her gracefully smoothing the fabric of her dress, her hands visibly trembling despite her efforts to hide it. Her breathing remained quick and unsteady. Joy watched her rise, and a complicated mix of emotions, surprise, defensiveness, maybe even a hint of guilt, flickered in her eyes. But she lifted her chin, stubborn, refusing to look away. Margot finally spoke, her voice quiet but piercingly clear. "I am not going to remain seated here while you belittle me." Joy scoffed, but the sound was significantly weaker than before. "I wasn't belittling you." "Joy," Margot stated firmly, "you absolutely were." The audience buzzed with tension, a sound like a storm gathering strength. Sunny leaned toward Margot, her voice laced with concern. "Are you all right?" Margot did not answer immediately. She pressed a hand against her chest, attempting to regulate her breathing. "I came here with the intention of discussing my film," she said, her voice trembling slightly but retaining its strength. "And instead, I have been mocked, interrogated, and laughed at." Joy rolled her eyes. "It was a simple joke." "No," Margot cut in sharply. "It was profound disrespect." Whoopi intervened again, more urgently this time. Okay. Let's hit the reset button. Everyone, please, just calm down." But Margot wasn't interested in calming down. Not because she was losing control, but because a crucial realization had crystallized in her mind. She wasn't simply angry, she was finished. Margot looked directly at Joy, a flash of pain visible behind her eyes. "You know, Joy, I grew up watching you. I admired your sheer audacity, your fearlessness. But I never once imagined that being on the receiving end of that boldness would feel quite like this." Joy swallowed, her jaw tightening. "You are being overly dramatic." Margot let out a short, hollow laugh, not amused, but expressing disbelief and deep disappointment. "I am an actor. Drama is literally my profession. But this," she gestured. "Around the studio, this is simply sad." The audience reacted with scattered gasps, a blend of shock and sympathy. Joy leaned forward. "Margot, you're overreacting." Margot blinked. Slowly. Steadily. Controlled. "No. I am reacting precisely as any human being reacts when they are humiliated on national television." The use of the word humiliated sent another shiver through the room. Sunny stared down at her hands, visibly distressed. Whoopi closed her eyes, as if she could feel the temperature dropping in the studio. Joy pressed her lips together, attempting a smile that failed halfway. "I'm just doing my job," she insisted, asking those tough questions. Margot lifted her chin. "You were not asking questions. You were taking deliberate shots." The audience applauded softly, a cautious but supportive endorsement, as if even they understood the extreme fragility of the moment. Margot placed her hand flat on the table, bracing herself. "I have dedicated my entire adult life to my career," she stated. "And you reduced it solely to my appearance, my face, something I can't control, something I certainly shouldn't have to apologize for." Joy opened her mouth to retort, but Sunny spoke first, her voice low. "Joy, perhaps you have crossed a line." Joy turned on her fiercely. I am not the villain in this scenario. Margot let out a soft, final breath. I don't believe you are a villain, she said quietly. I believe you are someone who has forgotten what it feels like to be on the receiving side of that particular kind of power. Joy's shoulders twitched almost imperceptibly, confirming the comment had struck a deeper nerve than she cared to show. Whoopi finally put a firm hand on the table. All right, let's just, but Margot was resolute. And if you're hungry for more explosive, emotional, cinematic breakdowns like this, be sure to hit subscribe to Narratives Vibe. Don't go anywhere, because the real consequences for Joy are still unfolding behind closed doors.